Hello and welcome to My Dietitian Journey. I'm Felicia, owner and registered dietitian at Peraza Nutrition and My Dietitian Journey. Today I want to talk about how to go about providing education and advice in sessions with your patients. I'm sure many of you listening have been in the situation where you start providing sessions to a patient and the response is, that won't work, or I don't like that idea, or I've tried that already. Once your patient is sharing, they might start spouting off maybe misinformation about nutrition or talking about a harmful diet that they want to test out. So you might be wondering how to go about handling these situations, which is what I want to talk about today. So let's first start with a situation where an individual is just shooting down every single idea that you have, which can feel pretty frustrating. And I find that this can happen when I start giving advice or suggestions without really engaging with my patient and getting to know them. So generally speaking, if advice is given in a respectful manner and with the individual's permission, it's usually received much better. Also, a patient is much more likely to follow through with information provided if, again, that information is provided respectfully and with their permission. There's a specific format for giving advice that I default to, which is Elicit-Provide-Elicit, or EPE. One of the core elements of motivational interviewing is the structure of EPE for sharing information. EPE first explores what the patient already knows, then seeks to obtain permission for what to offer and how to offer it. And the dietitian would then be able to explore the patient's response. So we're looking at permission first, knowing what the patient knows already, and then exploring what that patient's response would be to the information we provide. So let's take a little bit of a deeper look into this EPE format. So the first elicit is getting to know what the patient knows or what they might need from you. This elicit part is usually an open-ended question, and this allows you to explore and evoke with a patient before you jump into any kind of advice or suggestions. The provide portion of the EPE is where you're going to give advice, suggestions, or education and information. When you're providing this information, you want to make sure that it's relevant to the patient, which is why that first elicit is so important. And we also want to provide information that's going to be neutral, highlighting the research, not really just your opinion. As much as we want to say, yes, individuals are coming to us because we're dietitians and we're an expert in the field, we really want to make sure that we're tailoring what we're saying to the individual and not just in this top-down approach of, I know all of the things and I'm going to tell you all the things, which can create this kind of uncomfortable dynamic. Also, we want to make sure that we present the information clearly and in small chunks. Too much information can really overwhelm our patients. The second elicit is to elicit a reaction from your patient, any questions, or maybe next steps. We can also elicit a patient's understanding of the information and allow them space to ask follow-up questions or have us clarify the information. So let's go over some ideas and some examples of really using this EPE format with patients. So thinking about a patient who might be just shooting down all of your ideas, before giving information or before providing that advice, asking the patient, what have you tried in the past? What ideas do you have for how you can incorporate exercise into your week? If we can evoke from them their history, their efforts, the suggestions that we're going to provide are going to be much better suited to their situation. By skipping this elicit, we may be making an assumption that the patient lacks knowledge or hasn't put in any effort. So let's say, for example, this patient says they've gone to the gym previously, but they no longer have a gym membership due to the cost. A follow-up to this could be, would it be helpful if we went over some ideas for other ways to incorporate movement outside of the gym? I'm eliciting permission to provide these ideas. After providing the ideas, I would then use the second elicit to explore maybe next steps or see what stood out to them. For example, I might say, which of these movements, if any, sound interesting to you? Or given what I shared, what additional questions or concerns do you have about incorporating exercise? If your patient is feeling frustrated with their progress, which I know many of you have probably come across already, this EPE format can help us to stay with empathy and then provide resources that might be helpful. So for example, if a patient says, I'm really frustrated with not being able to get it together and lose weight, a follow-up question could be, can you tell me about what you mean when you say get it together? So we're clarifying and seeking for clarification. Or what do you feel like isn't working? Or what is standing in your way? Sometimes the default is to validate and then jump right into advice, which might be more targeted to what they need if we're able to, again, first figure out where they are, what they're feeling. So let's say this patient says, I just started with eating better and exercising, and then it all falls apart. I end up just going back to my old habits. So a response to this could be a reflection, for one, and two, a follow-up question to explore those potential barriers. What exactly is throwing them off track? What is happening around those times? If we have some suggestions for this patient, we might first check to see if they were open to hearing them. For example, based on what you shared, I have some ideas for how we can work through these barriers. Would it be helpful if I shared those with you? Depending on the situation, we might not want to just jump into those suggestions, but maybe elicit from them permission to move into an activity, like maybe brainstorming. So for example, we might say, you shared some different barriers that were getting in the way of you staying consistent with your goals. I have a worksheet that we can use to brainstorm some potential solutions. Would you be open to testing this out, or would something else be more helpful? Part of why I asked in this way is to offer an alternative to the suggestion. It puts the patient in the driver's seat of the session. If, let's say, we go through this brainstorming worksheet, I would use the second elicit to explore if they had any questions or what came up for them. For example, looking at the worksheet, what stands out to you? Or looking at this worksheet, what do you think, or where do you think could be a good place to start? The second question can be great for moving into goal setting if your patient is ready. It also allows us to see where to go next in the conversation. Another example could be a patient who is maybe wanting to try a diet that we know could be unhealthy or maybe lacks research to actually support it. It might be also outright dangerous. And as much as we want to, we don't want to just jump right into, don't do that, it's really dangerous. Most of the time, if we're just telling people what to do, that can bring up a lot of resistance. So again, we use this EPE format. We start with the elicit. Tell me a little bit more about what makes you interested in, let's say, the cabbage soup diet. After they share, we might offer a reflection, and then we would elicit again before providing any advice or thoughts. This can look like, I have some concerns about the cabbage soup diet that you are interested in trying. Would you be open to some information on the research? We might provide again in small chunks that information. While cabbage is great, a cruciferous vegetable that can be included as part of a healthy diet, there's limited research to support the effectiveness long-term of the cabbage soup diet. It's very low in calories, which can certainly lead to weight loss, but that weight loss can be more water weight and difficult to maintain that loss over time. Based on what you shared previously, you've tried many diets in the past and found them to be unsustainable long-term because of restrictiveness. I can then move into that second elicit. What are your thoughts on what I just shared? Or what questions do you have about what I shared? Something I want to point out with correcting misinformation is that we don't want it to just slide by in the conversation, especially if it could be harmful. The key is to try and reduce the resistance that can show up if we just start off with, don't do this, or I don't recommend that. We could build trust by respecting the patient, taking the time to understand why they might have gravitated to a certain diet or how they came across the information. So in summary, the EPE format is a core element of motivational interviewing, a great tool to build connection to the session, reduce the likelihood of this discord or resistance, and a great way to collaborate more with your patients. So thanks for listening, and be sure to leave a comment if you have questions and subscribe for more content.